It's a strange thing, attending your own funeral. Even stranger when it's your family who organized it. That thought echoed in my mind as I outlined my lips in a deep crimson shade, the same one my mother used to call too bold. I stared at myself in the mirror, locking eyes with my reflection like I was daring the ghost in the glass to flinch first. They told everyone I was dead. Not metaphorically, not in the we cut her off and don't mention her kind of way. They meant it literally. They announced my death, held a service, even showed a slideshow. And of course, I wasn't invited. For the past 12 years, I've lived in the shadows, quiet, distant, unseen. I built a life of my own, a good one. But no matter how far I ran, their silence followed me like an echo I couldn't escape. It wasn't until last week that I learned how deep their lie went. A childhood friend messaged me out of nowhere. "Wait, aren't you dead?" At first I laughed. Then I saw the Facebook post. A family photo, my sister smiling, my parents standing behind her. And beneath it, a comment, "We miss her every day." She would have been 33 this year. They had buried me in words, killed me in stories, but now I was back. And they had no idea what was coming. I fastened my earrings, smoothed the fabric of my black dress, and stood tall. Today, the family would gather again, for celebration, for pictures, for perfection. And this time, I'd be in the frame. The ghost they tried to erase was about to knock on their door. Some people grow up in homes filled with warmth. Sunday casseroles, bedtime stories, a mother's soft hand brushing hair away from their face. I didn't. In my house, love came with conditions. Approval was currency, and I was always broke. My mother believed in discipline, not affection. She measured worth in silence and obedience, and I failed both. My father? He was a ghost even when he was sitting beside you. Always present, never there. And then there was her, my sister. The golden one. Perfect grades, perfect hair, perfect lies. I was everything they didn't want. I asked questions. I spoke when things felt wrong. I refused to fake smiles just to keep peace. To them, that made me rebellious, disrespectful, a disappointment. They called me ungrateful for wanting to be heard, unstable for showing emotions, unlovable for simply being myself. By 16, I'd learned that silence wasn't just survival, it was expected. Still, a part of me hoped that one day they'd finally see me. And then I met Eli. He was kind, gentle, funny in a way that didn't ask for anything back. He came from a completely different world, different background, different values, but he made me feel seen. Like I mattered. When my mother found out, she didn't yell. That would have been too human. She just looked me in the eye and said, "You're not one of us anymore." Then came the ultimatum. Choose us, or him. I asked if I could choose myself. That was the real betrayal. On my 18th birthday, they gave me a gift. A black trash bag stuffed with my clothes, a bus ticket to nowhere, and a goodbye that never came. No hugs, no tears. Just the sound of the front door closing, and not locking behind me. I remember sitting at the edge of the street, clutching that garbage bag, wondering if I had ever really existed to them at all. No one followed. No one called, not then. Not ever. I wasn't just unwanted. I was erased. But what they didn't realize was that the girl they threw away would one day become the woman they'd regret creating. It had been nearly a decade since I'd last heard their voices. And honestly, I was fine with that. No birthdays, no holidays, no fake phone calls pretending the past hadn't happened. I'd made peace with the silence, until it spoke again. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was drinking coffee in my apartment when a Facebook notification popped up. A name I hadn't seen since high school. The message was short, hesitant. "Hey, is this really you? I thought you were dead." My hands froze. I reread it 3 times. Dead? At first, I thought it had to be a mistake or a cruel joke. So I replied carefully, "Yeah, it's me." "Why would you think that?" Her response came quickly. She told me my parents had told everyone I died in a car crash not long after leaving home. She said they even talked about it at church years later. My mother, the same woman who couldn't meet my eyes when she kicked me out, had stood before a crowd, crying over the daughter she chose to lose. She turned from family, she'd said, and the world punished her. She cried for the daughter she'd killed with her own words. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. There was no crash, no obituary, no grave. Just a lie, wrapped in holiness, sold as truth. I asked my old friend if she had any photos or proof. She sent me a photo someone had posted from that church event. There was a slideshow, a table covered in candles, and a framed picture of me at 16, the one where I still had braces and hope in my eyes. They didn't just cut me out. They didn't just ignore me. They told everyone I was gone. To friends, to family, even to God himself. They held a fake funeral. Right there, in front of witnesses. And nobody questioned it. Nobody asked what really happened. No one looked for me. No one even wondered if the story was a little too perfect, too clean, too easy. I wasn't missing. I wasn't dead. I was just inconvenient. So they erased me, like a bad chapter they didn't want to remember. But here's the truth about ghosts. They don't stay buried forever. After the lie spread, I vanished. Not out of shame, but survival. If they wanted me dead, fine. I let that old version of me die. But the woman I became, she was forged in fire. For years, I kept my head down and my heart guarded. No help, no handouts, no family. I worked 3 jobs, diner waitress by morning, bookstore cashier by night, and cleaning offices in between. I slept in borrowed rooms, lived off instant noodles and determination. But with every shift, every dollar saved, every exam passed through sleepless nights and aching hands, I came back to one sentence. They said I was dead. That sentence became my fuel. I put myself through school, graduated with honors, turned a tiny freelance design job into a 6-figure interior design business. Clients trusted me with their homes because I had built mine from nothing. No safety net, no applause, just grit, scars, and an unbreakable promise to myself. If I ever returned, it wouldn't be to beg. It would be to show them exactly what they lost. For a long time, that was enough. Success filled the silence they left behind. But after a while, even that silence started whispering again. This time, it was another old friend, someone who still kept in touch with my family. She sent me a link to a Facebook page. My family's page. There it was. My parents smiling wide under a banner that said 40th anniversary celebration. All family welcome, all family except me. Dozens of photos. Dozens of comments. People laughing about old times, tagging my sister, mentioning cousins, aunts, uncles, and not one single mention of me. Not even a shadow, not even a lie. They hadn't just declared me dead. They had rewritten the story as if I'd never existed at all. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed the laptop and stood up. You wanted me gone so badly? Fine, but if you're going to pretend I'm a ghost, then I'll give you a haunting you'll never forget. It was time to go back. Not to ask for love, but to speak the truth face to face. The day was bright, almost too bright. The kind of day that looks calm right before a storm. The house hadn't changed. Same white fence, same rose bushes, same cold feeling that hit my chest the moment I stepped out of the car. Laughter spilled from the patio. Champagne glasses clinked. Soft hymns played through the speakers. Relatives I hadn't seen in more than a decade stood shoulder to shoulder, sharing memories I was never part of. They looked so happy, so sure that the past had stayed buried, but not for long. I didn't knock. I didn't need to. I walked through the gate slowly, heels tapping like a clock counting down to impact. A few guests glanced up with polite, puzzled smiles. They didn't recognize me, not yet. Not until Aunt Ruth dropped her glass. The sound shattered the silence, every head turned, and then I saw her, my sister. She froze mid-laugh, her mouth still curved in a smile that didn't know it was about to die. Her eyes locked on mine like she was seeing a ghost. Because to her, that's exactly what I was. Is this some kind of sick joke? She asked, her voice trembling. I stepped closer, lifted my chin, and met her fear with fire. No joke, I said. I'm very much alive, no one spoke. No one moved. Even the music stopped. Or maybe someone turned it off. I'll never know. All I remember was the weight in the air, thick with guilt and shock. I looked around at them, old friends, cousins, people who had prayed for my soul at a memorial that never should have happened. Some had tears in their eyes. Others couldn't look at me, and then there were my parents, standing by the cake table, pale as stone. My father gripped the edge of the table like he might fall. My mother's hand went to her necklace, the little cross she always touched when she was hiding something. I took another step forward. You can relax, I said softly. I didn't come to ruin your pretty little party. I just came to remind you. I paused, letting the weight of it settle. You can't bury someone who isn't dead. The silence cracked open, and underneath it, truth began to rise. I stood in the center of their perfect celebration, surrounded by faces that once cried over me as if I were gone forever. The dead girl, now standing there in full color. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder. Old-fashioned on purpose. Nothing digital. This moment needed paper, something they could hold, something they couldn't erase. "Before you tell more lies to cover the last ones," I said, my voice calm but cutting, "let's clear the air." I opened the folder and lifted the first page, an obituary. My name printed in bold, my birthday, a fake date of death, and a short, polished paragraph about how I'd found peace after a troubled time. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered a prayer. My mother looked like she might faint. Someone had taken the time to write this, to print it, to hand it out in church like a flyer for grief. I turned to the next page. Photos. Me holding the keys to my first apartment, wearing my graduation cap, cutting the ribbon at my design studio, passport stamps, licenses, bills. Proof of life. Year after year you buried me in rumor, I said. But while you mourned a lie, I was building a life. Then I turned to my sister. She hadn't moved. Her eyes were wide, knuckles white around her champagne glass. "And you," I said, my voice cold, steady. "You sold my things." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. "I know you cleaned out my room. You said I left nothing behind. You took Grandma's ring, the one meant for me, and wore it like it was yours. You didn't just take my things. You stole my story, my silence, my name." She tried to speak, to explain, but the room had no space left for excuses, not with the truth spread around like shattered glass. I turned slowly, meeting every gaze. All of you stood by. You heard the lies, repeated them, believed them, because it was easier than asking what really happened. You buried me with your silence. But now the dead speak. The room broke apart. Some people cried. Others stormed out. My aunt shouted something about forgiveness. My cousin started pacing, furious that no one ever told him the truth. Voices overlapped. Panic, guilt, disbelief. The mask this family had worn for years was cracking in real time. And me? I just stood there, calm, alive, unapologetic, letting the fire burn. I didn't need to stay for the chaos. I'd already said what needed saying, dropped truth like a match into a room soaked in gasoline. Now it burned, not with anger, but with reckoning. When I turned to leave, no one tried to stop me. The same people who once whispered about my troubled spirit now stood frozen in the ashes of their own lies. I walked out as quietly as I had walked in. But this time I wasn't escaping. I was rising. Behind me I heard footsteps. Small, uncertain. A few cousins, young, wide-eyed, followed me to the driveway. "I'm sorry," one of them whispered. "We didn't know." I nodded, not in forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Not everyone had swung the knife. Some just stood still while I bled. Then a child's voice. I turned. A little girl, maybe 8, clung to her mother's dress. She looked at me like I was something out of a storybook. Not dead, not broken, just brave. She didn't say a word. But her eyes said everything. When I got into my car, I looked back at the house one last time. They thought cutting me off was the end. But what they buried had grown back stronger. It's been 6 months since that day. The party is just a memory now, faded but never forgotten. The whispers still travel through the family, but I don't care. Because for the first time, I'm the one telling the story. I wrote it all down, every detail, and shared it in a podcast. My words, my truth. My voice, finally heard, and something amazing happened. People listened. Strangers reached out. Other ghosts, daughters, sons, siblings, who'd been buried alive by their own families found me. I'm not the ghost they made anymore. I'm the storm they never saw coming, and I'm not done. Because truth doesn't die when it's ignored. It grows louder, brighter, unstoppable. Final shot, me standing on my balcony at sunrise. The wind in my hair, hands on the railing, the city breathing below. No shadows, no silence. Just me, alive and finally seen.